What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the year that this was for gaming. This is a little bit different. This is not like a Game of the Year awards or anything like that, but kind of a retrospective. I believe around halfway through the year, I talked about this year, and because a lot of people, I would say, have formed the narrative, and you can believe whatever you want to believe. You could think whatever you want to think. I'm not here to tell you otherwise. But obviously, I think as the year went on, a lot of delays, right? The beginning of the year was plagued by a ton of these big games being moved out of 2021 that may have made this year killer, right? Horizon, God of War, Hogwarts Legacy, Gotham Knights. And a lot of people were saying, like, this year is horrible. This year's been a horrible year for games. And, I made a video halfway through the year kind of saying I don't agree with it, but I think the second half of the year is going to be a major, indicator of the overall narrative. I would say, obviously Halo Infinite's campaign, I would argue, right, is probably the last big thing to come out this year. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, I don't think it's going to define, even if it's like the greatest thing ever. I don't think it's going to define 2021. So I think I'm safe right now talking about how the year has gone. And I would say this year's overall been pretty darn solid. I don't think this is like a gem, like this has been one of the greatest, years of gaming. Obviously also plagued by like the lack of PS5s and Series X's. But I do think people kind of give it a bad, I guess, like grade, because of one thing or another. And I think that those things are kind of the only things that those people are thinking of. Does that make sense? And again, I'm not singling anybody out. And if you believe this year sucked for gaming, that's completely your right to do that. I'm just here to tell you, my opinion. I think, if you were looking forward to Hogwarts Legacy and Hogwarts Legacy didn't happen and you say, well, this year sucked. Well, maybe, but maybe also there was other games that came out, whether you played them or not, right? So I would say this is not like to me, like 2011 was one. I don't know how many people were around in 2011 that were playing games. I wasn't around YouTube, but I was around, video games at the time. 2011 is probably my favorite year of all time in terms of video games releasing. There's just so many throughout the year, but specifically even the last maybe like 3-4 months of the year that just killed it. Did absolutely incredible. So I think that's one of the strongest ones. Even if you look back at 2020, and obviously, when you talk about 2021 in games, you probably think of, oh, what was last year like? I mean, last year was big. And because of, the stuff going on around the world, it was definitely different, but there was definitely big, huge, and I think that's why. So what I would say for this year has been this. There were more surprises. There were more almost hidden gems this year than last year. I would even argue the last 2, 3, 4 years. I'd really argue that. But in terms of the big hits, no, I don't think this year compares or maybe even comes even close to some of the past years. What's the biggest hits, of this year? I loved games like It Takes Two. I loved games a ton, and I've said it before. Life is Strange, True Colors, and Guardians of the Galaxy are my two favorite games that came out this year. Those Guardians maybe a little bit more than Life is Strange just because of name, but those would not be considered, the biggest things in the world. Last year, you had Doom. You had Final Fantasy VII's remake, if you can believe it. You had Can you believe that the Final Fantasy VII's remake was only like a year and a half ago? You had, Last of Us Part 2. You had Ghost of Tsushima, and you had many more, right? Animal Crossing for Nintendo, right? I mean, it was gigantic. So, like, any one of pick, Last of Us Part 2 for being as divisive and split as it was. Like, that's a gigantic game. There's really no game that came out this year that I would say kind of match that in terms of how, Resident Evil, I think, had like a impact online on YouTube. A lot of Let's Players played it, got millions of views, and it sold really well. But I mean, did it really match The Last of Us? And what other game, like Ratchet and Clank, I loved it, but it sold like 2, 3, 4 million, it didn't make record-breaking numbers. Life is Strange, I think it's the second best Life is Strange game that's come out, but like, did anybody actually even play that game? Not really many did. Guardians I loved, but is anybody buying it? It's on sale now. I'm recording this before Black Friday. I don't know when you guys are seeing it, but it's on sale for $25. It's more than half off. It's like 65% off. Does that mean nobody's buying it? So, and that's a question. So I would say in terms of it's not even necessarily, because I was going to say in terms of quantity, I feel like there's more this year that like made an impact on me, but last year maybe the smaller amounts of things that came out made a bigger impact. Does that make sense? But yet again, that's subjective. Like The Last of Us, that made a huge impact either way. And I don't think any game here compared to it, but to argue against that. I don't really think there was that many. Again, like Doom was big, but was it that huge? Final Fantasy VII was a huge thing for me, huge thing for a lot of people. Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, like there were Animal Crossing was like the biggest thing ever. So like yes, but like this year I could name more than that. I could name more than 5 games that made an impact, and I think there was just a lot of solidness. Again, like It Takes Two, Returnal, Hitman 3, Little Nightmares 2. Again, are these games lasting all that long? No, it doesn't seem like it, but they still came out, and I think they were still, an impact, a hit when they did come out. Even these last couple months, Forza Horizon 5, and that was a big thing. Remember, like I said, I made this video, a similar video, I think in June or July, and I mean, we still had, the rest of the, 12 minutes came out, and that's, that is what that is. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, and all of the September games and all the October games. We got Battlefield now, right? We have the Pokemon, Diamond and Pearl. So, we got things, Call of Duty released. And yes, there were things that just did not hit this year, but like I said, I also would consider this year a year more of surprises. I did not think Life is Strange True Colors was going to be anything special, and it was. It's a very special game to me. Guardians of the Galaxy, I was so mixed on that game, it's unbelievable. That game's outrageously good. You know what I mean? So you had these things kind of come. Knockout City. Now, how many people are playing Knockout City? I don't know, but that EA dodgeball game, I love that game. I love it. That's a game. I mean, I never would have. If I would have told myself last year that would have been a game that I played as much as I did, that's crazy. But it is. That's the kind of game that it is. So I think I would say this to be, flat out honest and transparent. I do not think this year was weak at all for games. I think there was actually maybe the most diversity in a good way, not forced diversity, not Hollywood kind of diversity. There's just games all over the place. You may like one, you may not like another. That's what this year was. Just so many different things, none of which maybe made. I think that's fair to say. You know what I mean? Because even if you look at Jeff Keighley's, the Game Awards, the games that are up for Game of the Year, again, how many of those, look at their impacts compared to the games of last year. Did Ratchet & Clank really make that big of an impact? No, not really. It Takes Two. No, not, I mean, you just, Resident Evil, you just keep going down the list. I don't know if they were as big as games last year, but I also don't think they had to. I think I did like last year better. But at the same time, though, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back, and I think Final Fantasy VII's remake was my game of the year last year. Do I like that game more than Life is Strange and Guardians of the Galaxy? I mean, I think probably, but it's actually maybe closer than I would have thought. So, how far apart are the 2 years actually? And again, by the way, 2020 was not the best. Obviously late last year because of the PS5 and Series X, we got a wave, Demon Souls remake and Miles and all that stuff. We did get stuff, Assassin's Creed, but in all, I don't really think 2020 was that impressive either. The last the last big year in gaming, I think, was more like 2016, 2017. I would overall say it hasn't been the greatest, 4 or so years for games overall. That's kind of just my opinion, but to say 2021 is to say it's one of the worst years we've ever gotten, I really don't think is all that true. I think it's just kind of that narrative is kind of formed, I would say, because of the stuff around the world, because of what we didn't get. Granted, if we do get the games we're supposed to get in 2022, right? You look at 2022 and you say God of War, Horizon, you even go some Microsoft games like Redfall, Starfield, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild 2, Hogwarts, Gotham Knights, Suicide. I mean, you can literally keep going, and they're gigantic games. Yes, 2022 is going to kill 2021 if they all pan out. Because again, I think 2021 had lesser impact games, but there were a lot of games that still were memorable or still were pretty darn solid. Whereas maybe next year is a repeat of last year. 2022 is Hogwarts sucked, Gotham Knights sucked, God of War was great, Horizon was a little disappointing, Starfield was buggy, Redfall was okay. Which games made a huge impact? Maybe 3 or 4. That's kind of like last year. You know what I mean? So I think it's a fun discussion. I mean, I just kind of wanted to throw this video together. I love talking about this kind of stuff. And again, I definitely, there's nothing wrong with people that say this year sucked. I have nothing against it. I just think I'm more or less, and I think maybe I said this 6 months ago, I'm kind of just disappointed when people say, this year sucked, and then I say, well, why? And they say, well, Gotham Knights didn't release or Hogwarts Legacy, and it's like, yeah, there are those people. There are people that only play 2 to 3 games a year, and so if their game doesn't come out, or if the 2 to 3 games a year that they like suck, well, of course they're going to say the year sucked because they didn't play. And that's how the world works. You may not like it. I don't like it. But I mean, that's honestly many people that play games, that's how they are. Otherwise, every game would sell, outrageous numbers. If all you play is Call of Duty, Madden, and one other game, this year probably was the worst year you've ever experienced. You know what I mean? But that's, but was it really though? No, because there's a lot of other things, but they wouldn't know that. And so that's just why I've always considered these pretty fun discussions. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. If you ever want me to talk about something like this again, I totally can. If you want to follow me anywhere else, I have a Twitter. I have a second channel. I also have Patreon and YouTube memberships. If you guys want to support us in any of those places, links for them all are in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.